The note was found on the small wooden table beside Grandma's bed. Nobody had been ready for it. Nobody had even imagined she would write something like that. The paper was folded twice, the edges shaky as if her hands had trembled while holding the pen. On the front, in her neat but fading handwriting, were just 3 words: "Please forgive me." When the family opened it, their hearts froze. Inside were sentences so heavy that silence fell across the whole room. Grandma had written a goodbye, words filled with love, regret, and secrets no one had ever heard before. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody wanted to believe it. The note ended with a line that made everyone's chest tighten, a line that no one was prepared to read. "By the time you find this, I will already be gone." And then, at the bottom, the most shocking part, she mentioned a hidden truth about the family, something that would change everything. But before they could read further, a loud knock came at the door, startling them all. Now, let's go back to where it all began. Grandma Eleanor had always been the strong one in the family. Even though her hair had turned silver and her steps had slowed, her spirit was still as sharp as ever. She lived in the old family house, the one with the wide porch and the tall oak tree in front that every grandchild had climbed at least once. She was the type of woman who carried warmth in her eyes, the type who would bake cookies when no one expected it, who would tell stories about the past like they were treasures. Everyone thought they knew her. Everyone thought she was unshakable. But sometimes, the strongest people are the ones carrying the heaviest burdens. It started on a Sunday afternoon when the family gathered for their usual lunch. The table was full of roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and the smell of fresh bread. Laughter filled the room as cousins argued over who would get the last piece of pie. Grandma sat at the head of the table, smiling, but if anyone had looked close enough, they would have seen the sadness hidden behind her eyes. She laughed when they laughed, but her smile lingered just a second too long, as though she was holding on to joy that was slipping away. Nobody noticed, at least not then. That evening, when the family left, she stood at the window watching their cars disappear down the road. She pressed her hand against the glass and whispered something to herself. Her lips moved, but no one was there to hear the words. Days passed. Grandma grew quieter. She no longer hummed while watering her flowers. She no longer told her evening stories. When the grandchildren came to visit, she would hug them tighter than before, holding on just a little too long. Something was changing. One night, her daughter Claire came to check on her. "Mom, are you all right?" she asked, noticing the way Grandma's eyes seemed lost in thought. "I'm fine, darling," Grandma answered softly. But her voice cracked on the word fine, and Claire knew better. She wanted to press further, but Grandma quickly changed the subject. It wasn't until weeks later that Claire noticed the papers scattered on Grandma's desk. They weren't recipes or letters to friends. They were drafts of something else. Pages crumpled, rewritten, torn, then rewritten again. A goodbye note. But before Claire could piece it together, Grandma had hidden the papers away. Life went on. Birthdays came, laughter filled the house again, and it seemed like things were back to normal. The children played hide-and-seek in the garden, the adults talked about work and life, and Grandma sat quietly in her chair, smiling whenever someone glanced her way. Yet, deep down, something heavy still weighed on her heart. One rainy night, thunder rumbling across the sky, Grandma lit a single candle and finally finished the letter she had been writing. Her hands trembled, her tears dropping onto the ink, smudging some of the words. She folded it carefully and placed it on the small wooden table beside her bed. She whispered a prayer, and as the candlelight flickered across her face, she closed her eyes. The next morning, Claire came into the room, humming a soft tune, ready to make her mother's favorite tea. She stopped when she saw the folded paper. Her heart skipped a beat as she picked it up. She read the first line, and her knees almost gave way. But before she could finish the note, the front door slammed open. A voice shouted in panic, "Come quickly! Something's happened to Grandma." Claire's hands trembled as the note slipped from her fingers. The words she had managed to read still echoed in her mind. "Please forgive me." Her heart pounded, But before she could process it all, the sound of hurried footsteps came rushing down the hallway. It was her brother, Daniel, his face pale and drenched in sweat. "Come quickly," he gasped. "It's Mom, she's not moving." The world spun for Claire. She rushed past him into Grandma's room, her heart slamming against her chest. There, in the dim morning light, lay Grandma Eleanor. She looked peaceful, too peaceful, as if she had simply fallen asleep. Her silver hair rested neatly on the pillow, her hands folded on her chest. "Mom," Claire cried, shaking her gently. "Mom, wake up, please." But Grandma didn't move. For a terrifying moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Claire pressed her ear against her mother's chest, desperately listening. Relief swept over her when she caught the faint, steady beat of a heartbeat. "She's alive," Claire whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She's alive." Daniel exhaled shakily, holding onto the doorframe as though his legs might give out. They called the doctor immediately. The minutes felt like hours, each second heavy with fear. The grandchildren, who had been playing outside, were hurried inside and told to stay in the living room. But children notice things adults try to hide. Their wide, frightened eyes followed every whisper, every hurried step. The doctor finally arrived, carrying his black leather bag. He checked Grandma's pulse, her breathing, her eyes. His face was calm, but there was a deep crease in his forehead. "She's weak," he said softly, "very weak. It seems her body has been carrying a burden for too long." Claire and Daniel exchanged a worried glance. Neither spoke. For a moment, no one moved. Daniel stood frozen at the open window, staring at the empty bed in disbelief. Claire pressed her hand against her mouth, her breath coming in quick, panicked bursts. "She was right here," Daniel whispered. "I saw her. She couldn't have just vanished." Claire picked up the locket from the floor. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a tiny, faded photograph of two young children, Claire and Daniel as toddlers. Behind the picture, in Grandma's delicate handwriting, were 3 words: "For my promise." "What promise?" Claire muttered, confused. But there was no time to think. The rest of the family had crowded into the doorway, their faces pale with fear. The grandchildren clung to each other, wide-eyed and trembling. "Where's Grandma?" Emily whimpered. Daniel closed the window, scanning the backyard. The oak tree swayed in the wind, but there was no sign of Eleanor outside. No footprints in the damp grass. No sound of a door opening. Nothing. "She's weak," Claire said. "She couldn't have gone far." The family spread out through the house, searching every corner, every hallway, every hidden space. They called her name until their voices cracked. But the old house only answered back with creaking floors and whispering winds. Minutes turned into an hour. Fear grew heavier. Claire finally sank onto the couch, clutching the locket tightly. "This doesn't make sense," she whispered. She could barely lift her head. How could she just disappear? Daniel paced the room, his jaw clenched. "Maybe she left on her own. Maybe she doesn't want us to find her." The children gasped. "Why wouldn't Grandma want us to find her?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. Silence followed. Nobody wanted to answer. Finally, Claire unfolded the goodbye note again. The unfinished sentence glared back at her. "The truth is," she felt her stomach twist. Whatever truth Grandma had been hiding all these years was tearing the family apart, and now she was gone. Later that evening, after hours of fruitless searching, the family sat together in the living room. Rain poured heavily outside, rattling against the windows like impatient fingers. The storm seemed to echo their fear. Claire stroked the locket, lost in thought. Memories of her mother filled her mind, her laughter, her gentle advice, the way she always seemed to know the right thing to say. But now all she could see were the hidden tears in her eyes, the quiet moments of sorrow that had gone unnoticed. "Maybe we didn't really know her at all," Claire whispered. Daniel stopped pacing. His eyes burned with determination.
No.
"She's our mother. If she's hiding something, then we're going to find out what it is." and we're going to bring her home. The family nodded, clinging to his words like a lifeline. But just as a fragile hope began to settle over them, a sound echoed through the house, soft at first, then clearer. Knock, knock, knock. Everyone froze. The knocks came from the front door, slow and deliberate, as if someone was testing their patience. Daniel moved toward it cautiously, his heart thudding in his chest. He opened the door. There was no one outside. Only the storm. Only the night. But on the doorstep, drenched by the rain, was a small, mud-stained envelope. On the front, written in Grandma's unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "Do not look for me." The envelope dripped rainwater onto the wooden floor as Daniel bent to pick it up. His hand hovered for a second, afraid of what might be inside. The rest of the family crowded around, holding their breath. Claire's voice trembled. "It's her handwriting, it's really hers." Daniel slid a finger under the soggy flap and carefully pulled out the paper within. The ink had bled in some places from the rain, but the words were still readable. He read aloud, his voice low, each word pulling the family deeper into silence. "My dear family, do not look for me. I am not lost. I am where I must be. For many years, I have carried a secret that belongs not only to me, but to all of you. It is time for the truth to come out. Please understand, I am not leaving because I don't love you. I am leaving because I love you too much to let you keep living in a lie. In the locket, you will find the key to what you must uncover. Follow it, and you will understand." The room went cold. The only sound was the storm battering against the windows. Claire looked down at the locket in her hand. "The key," she whispered. Daniel reached for it. Together, they examined the tiny gold pendant more carefully. At first, it seemed ordinary, but then Daniel noticed a tiny hinge on the side. He pressed it gently, and with a soft click, a hidden compartment sprang open. Inside was not just the faded photo of Claire and Daniel. Tucked behind it was a scrap of paper, folded so small it was almost invisible. Claire unfolded it with trembling hands. On it was a single sentence, written in Grandma's delicate handwriting. "The truth lies in the attic." Everyone gasped. The attic had always been a forgotten place, dusty, dark, filled with boxes no one touched. Grandma had forbidden the children from playing up there, saying it was unsafe. But now, it seemed the attic held more than just cobwebs. Daniel grabbed a flashlight. "We're going up there. Tonight." Claire hesitated. "What if we find something we don't want to see?" Daniel's eyes were hard. "Then at least we'll know the truth. We can't live like this anymore." The family followed him up the narrow staircase. The air grew colder as they climbed, the wooden steps groaning beneath their weight. The attic door creaked open, releasing a musty smell of dust and forgotten years. Flashlight beams swept across old trunks, stacks of yellowed newspapers, and covered furniture. Shadows danced along the walls like ghosts. "Spread out," Daniel whispered. They opened boxes filled with photo albums, letters, and clothes from decades past. The children sneezed from the dust, clinging close to Claire. Then Emily pointed toward the far corner. "Look." A small wooden chest sat tucked beneath an old quilt, its surface scratched and worn. Unlike the other boxes, this one had a heavy padlock. Claire's hands shook as she reached into the envelope again. Inside was a tiny rusted key, wrapped carefully in cloth. Her eyes widened. "It fits," she whispered. Daniel took the key and slid it into the lock. With a sharp twist, the padlock snapped open. He lifted the lid slowly. Inside were letters, dozens of them, neatly stacked and tied with faded blue ribbon. Each envelope was addressed to Eleanor, but the sender's name was one nobody in the family recognized. Claire picked up the top one and unfolded it. Her voice faltered as she read, "My beloved Eleanor, I am sorry I cannot be there with you and the children. One day, when the time is right, they must know the truth, that I never abandoned them, that my absence was not by choice, but by sacrifice." The family exchanged stunned glances. "Children?" Daniel whispered. "What children?" Before Claire could read further, a sudden noise echoed through the attic. A sharp, deliberate sound. Footsteps. Heavy, slow footsteps coming up the stairs. The footsteps grew louder. Thump, thump, thump. Each step made the old wooden staircase groan, and the sound sent chills crawling across every spine in the attic. The children clung tightly to Claire, their wide eyes reflecting the faint glow of the flashlight. Daniel raised the beam toward the stairway hatch, his jaw clenched. "Who's there?" he called out. Silence. Only the creaking of another step. Claire's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might echo through the room. She held the bundle of letters close to her chest, as if protecting them would protect the entire family. Then, slowly, a figure appeared at the top of the stairs. It was
Grandma.
Her frail body leaned heavily on the railing, her nightgown brushing the dusty floor. Her silver hair was damp from the rain, strands clinging to her face. But her eyes burned with a strange mixture of sorrow and strength. "Mom," Claire gasped. How did you?" Grandma raised a trembling hand. "Put them back," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm outside. Daniel shook his head.
"No, Mom.
"Not this time. We deserve to know the truth." Her eyes darkened. "The truth can break you," she said. "The truth can tear families apart." Claire stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "But hiding it is tearing us apart already." For a long moment, Grandma said nothing. She looked at the chest, then at her children, then at the terrified grandchildren. Her lips trembled as if 1,000 words wanted to escape, but she swallowed them back. Finally, she whispered, "Those letters, they are from your father." The room froze. Daniel blinked. "Our father?" But he shook his head violently. "That's impossible. Our father died when we were little. You told us." Grandma's shoulders sagged, the weight of years pressing down on her. "I told you what I thought would protect you, what I thought would keep you safe." Claire's voice broke. "Safe from what?" Grandma's hand clutched at her chest, as if the words themselves stabbed her. "Your father didn't die. He disappeared because of something he discovered, something dangerous. He made me swear to keep the truth hidden until the time was right." The family erupted in shocked whispers. The children stared, confused and frightened, not fully understanding but feeling the weight of the moment. Daniel's voice thundered. "So all these years you lied to us? You let us believe he was gone forever? Do you know what that did to us?" Tears streamed down Grandma's cheeks. "I know," she whispered, "and I carry that pain every day. But I did it because I love you, because the truth would have destroyed you when you were children." Claire knelt beside her, gripping her mother's frail hand. "Then tell us now.
Please."
We're not children anymore. We can handle it." Grandma's lips trembled. Her eyes flicked to the letters again. "If I tell you, there's no going back." Daniel's hands shook as he untied the ribbon and pulled out another letter. He unfolded it and read aloud. "My dear Eleanor, they are watching me. If they ever find you and the children, everything will be lost. Keep the locket safe. One day, it will guide them to the truth. And when that day comes, tell them I never left them. Tell them I am still fighting for them." Daniel's voice cracked on the last words. He looked at Grandma, with eyes full of both fury and heartbreak. Who was watching him, Mom? Who was after him? Grandma didn't answer. Instead, she staggered toward the chest, her hands trembling as she pushed aside the letters. Beneath them lay a small leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age. "This," she whispered, "is where it begins. Your father wrote down everything he discovered. But once you open it, nothing will ever be the same again." Daniel reached for the journal, but before his fingers touched it, a loud crash shattered the attic window. The wind howled as glass scattered across the floor. And in the middle of the chaos, a shadowed figure slipped inside. Shards of glass rained onto the wooden floor as the wind roared through the broken attic window. The flashlight beam wavered wildly as Daniel spun toward the noise, shielding the children with his body. A dark figure stood in the gap where the glass had been, rain pouring down behind them. Their face was hidden beneath a dripping hood, but the way they moved, deliberate, silent, sent a chill straight through the family. "Who are you?" Daniel demanded, his voice sharp but unsteady. The figure didn't answer. Instead, they stepped forward into the attic, water dripping from their cloak, their boots crunching against broken glass. The children whimpered. Claire pulled them closer, her arms wrapped tight around Emily and the others. Then, in a trembling voice, Grandma spoke. "It's you." The figure froze. Slowly, they pulled back the hood. Gasps filled the attic. The man standing before them had streaks of gray in his hair, his face lined with years of struggle, but his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, were unmistakable. Daniel staggered back. "No, that can't be." Claire's voice broke into a whisper.
Dad.
The man's lips trembled. He nodded once.
Yes.
"It's me." The room spun with shock. For years, they had mourned him. For years, they had believed he was gone. And now, here he stood, alive, drenched by the storm, staring at them with eyes full of both sorrow and urgency. Claire dropped to her knees, covering her face with trembling hands. Daniel clenched his fists, torn between running to him and pushing him away. "Why?" Daniel demanded, his voice trembling with rage. "Why did you leave us? Why let us believe you were dead?" Their father's shoulders sagged. "Because I had no choice. I was protecting you." "From who?" Daniel shouted. The man's eyes flicked to the journal in Grandma's hands. "From the people who wanted that. From the people who are still watching." The storm outside thundered, lightning flashing through the broken window. Shadows danced across the attic walls, making the moment feel even more unreal. Claire's tears fell freely. "All these years, Mom carried this alone. Do you know what it did to us? To her?" Their father's voice cracked. "Every day I was gone, I carried the same pain. But if I had stayed, none of you would be alive right now." Silence fell. The only sound was the storm outside and the frightened breathing of the children. Finally, Daniel's anger broke. He took a step forward, his voice shaking. "Then tell us everything. No more lies. What were you running from?" Their father looked at Grandma, then at the chest, then at the journal. He took a deep breath, his eyes hardening. "The truth is written there. But once you read it, there's no turning back. They'll come for you too." "Who will?" Claire asked desperately. Before he could answer, a blinding light flooded through the attic window. A deep, rumbling sound filled the air, unlike thunder, like engines. The family rushed to the window. In the distance, through sheets of rain, headlights cut through the darkness. Several black cars rolled slowly up the road toward the house. Their father's face turned pale. "It's too late. They've found me." He turned to the family, his voice urgent and fierce. "Listen to me. Take the journal. Protect it at all costs. Whatever happens tonight, do not let them get it." Then came the sound that froze them all, car doors slamming shut in unison. Dozens of footsteps began to approach the house. The sound of footsteps on wet gravel grew louder, heavier, closer. The storm lashed against the house, rattling the windows, but nothing could drown out the dread marching toward them. Claire clutched the children, her knuckles white. Daniel stood firm, though his breathing was shallow, his fists trembling. Grandma Eleanor leaned against the wooden chest, her frail frame shaking, while their father, once thought dead, stood like a wall between them and the broken window. "Downstairs," he whispered urgently.
Now.
"Stay together." But Daniel shook his head. "No, who are they? Why are they coming for us?" Their father's eyes blazed. "People who want the truth buried. People who will do anything to silence it. If they get their hands on the journal, everything we've tried to protect will be destroyed." Claire's voice broke. "But why us? We're just a family." "You're more than that," their father said, his voice low but fierce. "And that journal, it doesn't just hold secrets. It holds proof. Proof that could change everything." Before anyone could ask more, the sound of a boot hit the porch outside. Then another. And another. A hard knock rattled the front door.
Bang, bang, bang.
Open up, a man's voice thundered. It wasn't a request, it was a command. The children whimpered. Emily buried her face in Claire's dress, whispering, "I'm scared." Claire stroked her hair, her heart breaking. "It's all right, sweetheart. We're together." Grandma Eleanor struggled to her feet, her eyes sharp despite her weakness. "They mustn't get the journal," she said firmly. "Hide it."
Now.
Daniel grabbed the book and tucked it under his jacket. His father's hand landed on his shoulder, steady and strong. "Protect it with your life, son." Downstairs, the door rattled again, this time harder. The sound of wood splintering echoed through the house. "They're breaking in," Daniel hissed. Their father turned to the family, urgency burning in his voice. "There's a back way out of the attic, through the roof hatch.
Take the children."
Go now." "What about you?"
Claire cried.
"I'll hold them off," he said without hesitation. "No," Daniel protested. "We just got you back. We're not leaving you again." But before anyone could argue more, the front door downstairs burst open with a deafening crash. Heavy boots stormed across the wooden floor, voices barking orders. "Search every room. Find it." The family froze. The sound of multiple men spreading through the house shook them to the core. Grandma Eleanor gripped Claire's hand tightly. "Do as he says. Protect the children. Protect the truth." Tears blurred Claire's vision. She gathered the little ones close and guided them toward the roof hatch. Daniel followed, the journal pressed against his chest like a lifeline. Their father moved to the top of the stairs, his shadow tall and defiant against the flashlight beam. Then came the first figure, dressed in black, face hidden, storming into the attic. Their father lunged forward, grappling with him. The attic filled with the sounds of struggle, grunts, crashes, the sharp crack of wood breaking. "Go!" he shouted through clenched teeth.
Now.
Claire shoved the children through the roof hatch one by one, the storm soaking them instantly. Daniel climbed out after them, pulling his mother's frail body with him. But just as Claire reached for the edge, a gunshot exploded inside the attic. She froze. The children screamed. Daniel spun around, his eyes wide with horror. Through the broken window, lit by a flash of lightning, they saw it. Their father collapsing to his knees, blood spreading across his shirt. The gunshot echoed through the storm like a cruel drumbeat. Claire's scream tore through the night. "Dad!" Daniel tried to climb back into the attic, but Grandma Eleanor grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "No," she rasped. "If you go back, you'll all be lost. The journal must survive." Tears streamed down Daniel's face as he froze between his grandmother's grip and the sight of his father bleeding inside. Another figure stormed into the attic. Their father, though staggering, rose with one final burst of strength. He swung a broken beam of wood, knocking the intruder backward. His voice thundered through the storm, raw and desperate.
"Go.
Save them. Don't waste my sacrifice." Claire's heart shattered. She pulled Emily tight, forcing herself to climb onto the roof. Daniel followed, the journal pressed under his jacket, rain soaking through. Grandma was last, guided by her children's trembling hands. They crawled across the slick tiles as lightning flashed and thunder cracked. Below, dark figures swarmed into the house, their shouts muffled by the storm. Then another gunshot. The sound froze them all. Silence followed. No more struggle. No more defiance. Daniel's chest heaved. He wanted to scream, but the storm swallowed his voice. Claire pressed her face into the wet roof tiles, sobbing silently, her children clinging to her. Grandma Eleanor whispered through her tears, "He gave his life to protect you, just as he always did." The family scrambled down the side of the house, slipping and sliding, finally reaching the ground. They ran through the storm, away from the house, away from the men who wanted the truth buried. They didn't stop until they reached the edge of the woods, their breaths ragged, their clothes drenched. Finally, they collapsed beneath the trees, shivering in the cold night air. Daniel pulled out the journal, his hands shaking. "We still have it," he whispered. His voice cracked. "Dad didn't die for nothing." Claire held the children close, her eyes red and swollen. But what now? What's in it? What's the truth? Grandma sat silently for a long moment, staring into the darkness. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. Your father discovered corruption. Powerful people doing terrible things in secret. He refused to stay silent. That's why they hunted him, why I kept the truth from you. I wanted to give you a normal life, free from their shadow. Daniel's jaw clenched. But now we can't go back, can we? No, Grandma said, her eyes heavy with sorrow. But you can go forward. And you can choose to do what your father could not finish. To shine light where there has been darkness. The storm began to ease, the rain softening into a gentle drizzle. The first hint of dawn painted the horizon, faint but certain. Claire looked at her children, then at the journal. If Dad gave his life for this, we can't let it die with us. We'll protect it. We'll finish what he started. Daniel nodded, his grip on the journal tightening. We'll carry the truth. Together. Grandma Eleanor's frail hand trembled as she reached for them, pulling her family close. Her eyes glistened, but for the first time in years, there was peace in her gaze. Then his sacrifice was not in vain, she whispered. They huddled together beneath the trees, broken but unbroken, mourning yet stronger than ever. The journal sat in Daniel's lap, soaked but safe, the weight of truth heavy, but theirs to bear. And though the storm had stolen so much from them, it had also given them a new beginning. A beginning written not in secrets, but in courage. Life lesson. Sometimes the truth is painful, heavy, and dangerous. But silence can be even more destructive. Love is not about hiding the truth. It is about protecting each other while facing it together. No sacrifice is wasted if it brings light to those you love. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more touching video stories that inspire and heal hearts.